You're now tuned in to the Cold Hard Truth, Cayman's #1 hard-hitting live podcast show, where we feature some straightforward conversations on political, social, and celebrity news and all things happening in the Cayman Islands and around the world. This show was created to give the people a voice and a means of being involved and informed without any filters. Sometimes it gets crazy, but we always keep it real. We bring you the tea, piping hot, so grab your favorite beverage and join the conversation via WhatsApp at 324-1612. Email tips@caymanmarlroad.com. Now, here's your host, Sandy Hill, broadcasting live from the beautiful Cayman Islands.
Good morning, everyone. How are you guys? It is Fab Friday. I am trying to figure out where my video is. I think I've got audio, but no video. So let me see if I can rectify that situation. Thank you guys so much for waking up with me. There we go. Beautiful Friday. It's another rainy day in the Cayman Islands, lots of overcast, but it's still beautiful. Good morning to Miss Morna. Good morning, Sai. Thank you so much for tuning in from Florida. I believe Sai is in Fort Lauderdale. Hello to the lovely Barbara. Thank you guys so much. Kathy Parchment, so nice to see you. Crystal is here for it. Good morning, Crystal. Good morning, Irvelyn, Ingrid, Jessica. Where are my guys, by the way? I know I always have a few guys that are tuning in. Okay, let me just going to. All right, folks. So thank you so much. Getting lots of messages coming in this morning. Lizette, happy Friday. It is Friday. Woohoo! Perfect. Everything looks good. Everything sounds good. I discovered the issue with the little side halo that I had going on. So I think I have now successfully addressed that. Naples, Florida. I should remember that. My apologies. We were talking about all the retired folks in Naples. That's right. Tamara is from Fort Lauderdale. JD is right here in the Cayman Islands. Jake is also in the Cayman Islands and probably at the gym. Jake, are you at the gym, my friend? Marshall holding it down from North Carolina. Who else is in the house? Where's my New York man, Larry? Who else? Catherine. Where's Catherine? Is Catherine here? So lots of international flavors. We got a couple folks in Jamaica. Where's Fitness Girl? She hasn't been on in a little while. So sometimes she tunes in from, actually she's in Miami, but sometimes she tunes in as well. Doris, thank you so much. There we are. There's Larry and there's John. Blessed Friday. John says that I look fresher today. Well, thank you. I haven't done a whole lot of anything. I did do a little an extra face wash this morning, actually, because I needed to really wake up. I was up until after 2:00 in the morning, getting some work done. And guys, sometimes that happens. Sometimes you got to be typing away into the night to make sure that we can report the news and bring you the news. Can I tell you? So Jake says he's not at the gym today. Power outage last night got him tired. Oh, yes. There was a power outage in parts of Town area because a taxi apparently ran into, or a bus or something, ran into a light pole. And, it was quite a situation. And that caused power in parts of Town, Belford Estates, and so on to go out. So there was no lighting in that area. So good morning, Robert. How are you doing? As Sai said, there's no flight available for Thanksgiving. Flight to where? To the Cayman Islands? Ooh, I wouldn't plan on flying much of anywhere because you're going to be stuck for like 2 weeks in quarantine in any event. Yeah, I think this Christmas and this Thanksgiving is definitely going to be a very different flavor for a lot of people. We've got to get used to, life will never be, listen, there's certain events in life that I think are so monumental that you always say to yourself, there is before and after, right? So in my lifetime, I can think about some really, really huge ones, like when the shuttle blew up. Like that was a major event as a young child in my life. I mean, I remember being in Florida. I was only in elementary school. Actually, no, I would have been in middle school. So like about 7th grade or so. And I remember sitting there looking up into the sky because we had, I don't know why, I will always seem to remember this science teacher's name. His name was Mr. Gentile. And he used to have a tarantula in the class and he would feed the tarantula. And so it was a clear day in Florida, and on clear days in Florida, of course, you'd go out and watch the shuttle take off. And this was a big thing to do. And so as part of science class, we were all going to go out and watch the shuttle take off. And we all went outside and we're looking up in the sky. And then we literally saw the shuttle explode. But as children, we were kind of like, I remember I was thinking, is that normal? What's that big like thing of smoke? Like, what is that? It was so unusual. And at first we were just like, we weren't sure what happened. And then our teacher's like, oh, I don't think that's supposed to happen. Everybody get back inside. And then of course we all went and watched the news to find out that the shuttle had exploded. Was it the Challenger? And everybody obviously on board was gone. Other big events that I can kind of think of, 9/11, of course, 9/11. So 9/11 was one of those days that, you woke up that morning thinking that you were going to have a normal day. And of course, 9/11, I was an adult. I was working, the whole 9 yard. And yeah. So at the end of the day, it happens and you're like, whoa. And there's always like a before 9/11 and an after 9/11. You kind of remember certain things. Ivan, of course, is the big one for us here in the Cayman Islands and more recent times. And we remember life before Ivan and we remember life post Ivan. And there's certain critical things that I think change as a result of that in your psyche, like in your mind, that you can never really fully go back to. So yes, I mean, for sure, COVID is a big one. My apologies. I think that one of the Um, One of the biggest things that about COVID that is a little bit different is that the entire world is experiencing it. And it's so dramatic for everyone. So, the Challenger, I'm sure it made world news, but it's not like every world was directly impacted by it. Ivan, there was a couple islands, a couple countries that were impacted by it. We probably got the brunt of it to a certain extent. 9/11 was a little bit closer to a world event because, of course, New York is quite an epicenter of the U.S. And there was that, there was also the one in Washington. So there was a wider impact, and thousands of people died from those two plane crashes. But none of them really compare to what we are now dealing with this pandemic. I mean, COVID-19 is massive. Millions of people infected. How many deaths do we have? I haven't even looked at the numbers in the past week, but I know that they're crazy. Let me just get maybe some updated figures here. So my point is, there will always be a before COVID-19 and an after COVID-19, but there will never be life going back to what it really was before. So things will absolutely change in the most, everyday ways. So travel is going to change for us. Now look at this headline today in Sky News. Coronavirus cases in England rise to 35,000 per day as 1 in 130 infected. And there was some conversation about increasing flights from the UK. I'm sorry, but are we crazy or are we crazy? Because to me, that makes absolutely no sense. 35,000 per day. They've risen again. So 1 in every 130 people are estimated to have had COVID-19 last week. So you bring in a BA flight that has 200 people, you do the math. At least one person on that flight is going to have it. And sure enough, yesterday's test results, we found out that again, 2 more asymptomatic people, travelers, tested positive. Oh, Barbara, yes, Larry is your brother-in-law. I remember that now. Now, Barbara, remind me, are you because I know you travel, I think, around a little bit. Are you still in Paris at the moment? Are you in Europe, or where are you? Yes, I see. Oh, you said that you're trying to get home from Paris. Yes, so you are still in Paris. Yeah. So John, absolutely, this is going to be very much a new normal for us. Barbara, travel is going to be difficult. And you know what I'm telling people right now? I even hear some parents saying, they would like their kids to be able to come home for Christmas. And normally Christmas break is maybe a month. What I'm saying is, listen, if you are in the UK, you're in Europe right now, this virus is skyrocketing around the world. And for your own safety, as well as the safety of people around you, you really need to consider probably staying put. I know it's got to be difficult to think about, having to do Christmas without probably some of your closest family members. Or if you're used to Caribbean Christmas, it probably just isn't the same. But you're going to have to really consider seriously about making some new memories and doing some new things that mean not traveling. It's really for your own safety. So these statistics in the UK are coming from the Office for National Statistics, and they're saying that there were around 32 new cases per day between the 10th and 16th of October, and that 300,000 people, what the heck am I saying, in England were infected. So that's quite a number, almost 500,000 basically. And last week, 1 in 160 people were believed to be infected, around with 27,900 cases daily. So they've just basically, I think, rounded that up. And then last the current figures for that time period are now around 35,000 per day. So they're calling these figures very bleak, and that they still show no sign of leveling off. And of course, we know they're now recording cases, they say, in private households and exclude hospitals and care homes. Wow. And there's been a growth in COVID-19 infection rates in all age groups over the past 2 weeks, including those age over 70, with the current rates highest in older teenagers and young adults. So for the longest time, we were going on and on about this is an old person's disease. Well, it still is. And it still obviously is attacking the most vulnerable with underlying health conditions. But this is very interesting because as more and more people become infected, we see that the older teenagers and young adults are very much at risk as well. So really crazy. Highest numbers of infections continue to be in the Northwest, Yorkshire, and the Humber and the Northeast. 1 in 59 people in the Northwest were estimated to have had the virus last week. That's a lot. But researchers say the gap between Northern England and other regions seems to be narrowing, which is not a good thing. Yeah. So in Wales, cases doubled to around 1 in 180 infected. Northern Ireland recorded a 2-week period, which, again, their numbers in that 2-week period more than doubled. Scotland appears in the ONS release for the first time, with 1 in 180 people believed infected between October the 3rd and the 16th. So they've got 4 regions in the UK that they are considering on very high alert, and they're under the toughest restrictions. Lancashire, South Yorkshire, Liverpool, Greater Manchester, under some really serious alerts at the moment. So Barbara, my friend, Sai, my friend, what I would suggest to you is just to hunker down, because remember now, if you have not been exposed to COVID, probably one of the worst things that you can do is engage in traveling, because there are people in the airport, a lot of people in the airport and in between, who could potentially expose you to this virus. So I would say have a quiet Christmas. I think you're there with your husband. If it's just the two of you, not even Santa is working this year. Like, honestly, Santa's canceled. Like, he's not coming down anybody's chimney. Santa is like, I'm not taking any chances. So this is quite a situation. So in Wales, a full nationwide lockdown comes into force at 6 p.m. in the evenings. And in Scotland, there are restrictions in pubs, bars, and restaurants, which have been extended until November the 2nd, with a new tiered approach to begin. And this was what someone recently said, an analyst, Thomas Moore for Sky News Science and medical correspondent. He said, there is no glimmer of hope yet. Wow. And this is the same story over and over and over and over again. All over the world, folks. The US, the UK, just about everywhere. It's just crazy. Absolutely crazy. So yeah, I listen, life will never be the same. Ingrid says, keep Santa safe. Well, Santa's like, I'm not traveling. Louis, good morning to you and the whole CMR Massive. He says, blessings on this beautiful Friday. Thank you so much, Louis. And Louis is in Detroit. I'm trying to remember where everyone is at. Can I tell you guys something? This is so interesting. We monitor on the website. By the way, someone shared that the accident last night took out power in a lot of different locations in Bodden town. And apparently the driver actually left the scene of the accident. So they ran into this pole and left the van. Isn't that crazy? Okay. So all right. So yes, the situation, as I indicated, continues to worsen around the world. The Telegraph, of course, out of the UK says again, coronavirus latest news, absolutely terrifying impact on northern hospitals revealed. So there is just so much that is going on around the region that, you know, people are feeling, they're feeling the real impact of this. And so whether it's Asia, the UK, you know, Cayman now has 236 total cases, 215 recovered, the same one death. And worldwide, there's now 1.4 million people that have died, and over 41, almost 42 million people that have been infected. And again, the infection and death rate are always on the more conservative side. And I always want to stress that because I know some of you believe in conspiracy theories, and you say that, oh, you know, they're classifying everything as a COVID death. And in fact, the opposite is actually true. So hi, Francie, thank you so much for tuning in. Yes, so Louis tells us that it is 73 in Detroit, rejoicing for the warmer temps. Crystal says, I think 2020 is just the beginning, more tribulations ahead. You know, I think it's just the world that we live in, unfortunately. Yeah, kind of sad. Ingrid, thank you so much. Oh, you noticed. Thank you, Ingrid. So let's talk about this. This is, Ingrid says, congratulations to you, Sandra, on great improvement on the audio on the site. So yesterday we added a new feature. Whereby now all of our articles, including all of the archive articles, have a voice feature. So what that means is you can actually, when you go to an article at the very top, you can actually just have the article read to you. So this is fantastic. You know, some certain features we've been like thinking about for a while, and then we have a really good team in the background, especially the web guy. He is amazing, right? I just say, hey, this is what I envision. This is what I want to do. What do you think? And he finds a way to make it happen. And there's so many things that I have in my head as part of, you know, a vision. And I'm just thankful that there are people who can translate that, who can do the research and say, yeah, we can make this happen. And so I love the ability for people to listen to a news article. So for different reasons, sometimes a person might be sight impaired. You know, not everyone has the same sight capability. Not everyone can see content as clearly. And so there are times that having the ability to be able to have something read to you is a wonderful addition. And not just sight impaired individuals. There might be people who English isn't even their first language. So let me just show you how this works. So when you go to the website now, you see at the top of the story, that little play button right there where it says, listen to this article now. That's where you just click on it. And then it gives you an idea of how long it's going to take to read the article to you so that you know exactly, you know, how long it's going to be. If it's a 2-minute article, a 5-minute article, whatever. And it does a good job of reading. So the other fantastic thing about this feature is you are able to read or have it read to you in different languages. So look at this. If you click on, let me just go back to this first one. If you click on the little globe that's right there, it's kind of gray. It's gray. So it's kind of, you know, a little bit easy to miss, but it's right under where it says listen to this article. So that little gray globe will, if you click on that, then give you options where you can see your audio availability in different languages. So they've got English, Spanish, German, Chinese, French, and Italian. So listen, if you speak any of those languages, by all means, you now have the opportunity to listen to it in your native language. Isn't that fantastic? So I love this. So let me give you a little sample of what it sounds like. It actually doesn't sound that bad. So we put up an article last night about pension private motions. That one is a little bit of a longer article. So let me see what it says here. So that says 4 minutes and 27 seconds. So you get an idea of how long, you know, that's going to be of a read. I think that one's actually quite a lengthy story as news goes. Like most news stories, believe it or not, in terms of an audio read, are just a couple minutes. So let's look at the tourism story. And so then you go to it and it takes a minute because it loads it like in real time. And it says 1 minute and 45 seconds. And then you just hit, let me turn up the volume here. So you just hit play.
Update. A government official has confirmed that approval of the funding for the tourism stipend is needed from the Finance Committee.
Oops, sorry.
This will take place at the conclusion of the LA agenda, likely next week. CMR, thousands of displaced tourism workers are still waiting for their October $1,000 tourism stipend payment for October. Many have contacted CMR since Friday indicating that the payments have been falling behind each month, but this payment is now delayed significantly. A week has now passed and no reason has been given for the delay.
So yeah, I mean, obviously it's AI, artificial intelligence that reads the article. So it's not going to sound 100% like, you know, like I would perhaps read it or whatever. But you know what? If you're sight impaired, or heck, if you're just tired and don't want to read, there you go. You're able to do that. It works on mobile devices, your tablets. Most people actually visit our website on their phones. So the vast majority of our people are, you know, mobile users. But if you're using it from a PC, it's the same thing. It doesn't really matter. And so, yeah, I'm very, very excited to have this feature added to the website. And there are other things that we are working on that will be deployed, hopefully in the coming, you know, weeks and months, because I think you've always got to be willing to improve and make sure that you are at the top of your game. So one of the interesting things that I always think about is we compete against ourselves, right? So we set the bar, and I think everybody should have this sort of way that they think about life. You set the bar in terms of what you want to achieve for yourself. You don't need to look at anybody else around you, really. I mean, you can't help but look at other people, but you know what I mean? Don't compare yourself to other people. Set the standard for what you wish to achieve in life, and then you go for that and make that your goalpost. And the goalpost cannot stay the same all the time. You've got to adjust the goalpost. If you accomplish one thing, you can then say, you know what, I'm going to enjoy it in the moment. This is a great accomplishment, but I always have to challenge myself to the next level. And that's what we really try to do here at Cayman Mall Road. You know, I was talking to someone yesterday a little bit about our history and how we have developed in a short space of time to have over 45,000, you know, social media followers between Instagram and primarily Instagram and Facebook. We are on LinkedIn, and I noticed that the audience is slowly growing on LinkedIn as well. And, you know, we're always going to be looking at new and different things. We need to be relevant in a very different space. So we're not competing necessarily with the same readers as everybody else, although we might attract some of those. You know, I think that our demographics are a little bit different. Yeah. So that was rolled out I was trying to give away a prize yesterday to someone who could have guessed it, but unfortunately, no one guessed it. So you know what? Who just pointed that out? Sorry, let me scroll back up. That was, where is that message? Okay. I know I just missed it. Oh, Ingrid. So Ingrid, will you please message me about getting a gift certificate? These have expiration dates, so I need to use these up. They're kindly donated by our corporate sponsors. So will you please message me on WhatsApp 324-1612? Let me write down your name because I always forget after the show. But will you message me, please, about getting you a gift certificate so that you can enjoy some lunch, courtesy of our sponsors and CMR. Lunch and us. All right, good folks. So yes, thank you so much for noticing that. So yeah, Christmas, this is going to be the first Christmas, I think, that is going to be very, very different. Good morning, Janelle. Yes, it is finally Fab Friday. Let's get a little how you doing up in the house.
How you doing?
All right, Sue, good morning. Sue is saying that COVID is so bad in the UK, USA, and yet people here still insist on traveling there for Christmas. All flights booked up too. Then lots are coming in here. Well, I'm curious about this situation when you say that all flights are booked up. They're going, and when are they coming back? See, this is the thing, right? Our airport is not open to commercial flights. So what that means is your travel should be, according to the government, for emergency situations only, or repatriation. So they're still calling them repatriation flights. So if you need to get back to the US, then you get back to the US. But the intent is wherever you're going, you should be staying there for the long term. In my mind, long term is 6 months, because I do not see our airports reopening, and this is a serious situation now. I do not see them reopening anytime before that 6 month period. So I think, you know, at the end of the day, you have got to just be prepared for that. Listen, we can handle anything that is thrown at us if we are prepared. And psychological preparation, emotional, mental preparation is the biggest thing. And we didn't get a whole lot of warning about this. So I think people were like not thinking that this sort of thing could happen. And now that we found ourselves in the situation, yeah, we got to step it up a little bit. So again, thank you so much, Ingrid, for pointing out our website feature. And I'm surprised to know that as small as we are, that we're the only persons that actually have that feature. I mean, I think that honestly, it's a fantastic feature. I love it, you know, but I'm also the type of person who loves audiobooks. Does anybody else like to listen to audiobooks? For many, many years, I've been a member of Audible, and I don't listen to as many audiobooks as I should, but I love listening to a good audiobook, you know? Some of them are narrated by the authors themselves, so the author who wrote the book. And then they actually have professional readers who read audiobook content. So that's what they do for a living. So yes, I just got a notification from Sam's Club that my membership expires in a week. I'm like, okay. I don't think they've ever sent me a notification before. So I got to make sure that that's actually from them. But that probably makes sense. I think the last time, because now they have all of these fancy checkout line and scan and go and all sorts of stuff. Contact free pickup. They have 24/7 with the Samsung at the Sam's Club's app now. Ooh, they have their own app. That's nice. I love warehouse shopping. I don't know about you guys, but there's so many things that we all miss from living or traveling to the US. Sam's Club is one of my favorite places. BJ's, Costco. I'm that kind of like club person. I think the only one that I have a membership at is Sam's Club, though. I think I used to have a membership at BJ's. I can't even remember. But sometimes I just go in and like buy the day membership, whatever. But yeah, so the presidential debates last night were quite interesting. It was a lot more well managed. And I don't know if that had anything to do with the fact that they had introduced this new buzzer feature, but it was very well managed. And so I'm happy to hear that, to be quite frank and honest, because I think we were all looking for, just a crazy situation to happen. And it didn't. So yes, a big shout out to Miss Ann Rice this morning in Florida. Good to see you. Oh my gosh, such wonderful news I've just received. Mr. Kadeem Kirk, who was the young man who was in the recent motorbike accident, as you may recall, he ended up losing part of his leg. He's in second surgery to, properly close off because I think he lost it right below the knee. So he had a second surgery on Monday to properly prepare the leg for an eventual prosthesis. And so I've just gotten confirmation that he is actually due to leave the hospital today. So congratulations to him. Unfortunately, his life will never be the same, but you know what? He's still so fortunate. It's not over. He could have died. It was a very bad accident. He could have bled out. There were people at the scene who came to this man's rescue. And I know a lot of people were critical because, we got video footage of it and they're like, oh, people are recording it. But there were a lot of people on the road that time of day. But I can assure you that there was no one who was recording it who was recording instead of rendering help. You don't need 50 people, 20 people, even 10 people on top of someone to provide them with the assistance that they need. And in this case, the off-duty officer who was involved in the incident, and obviously it's still under investigation, but I understand that he was very instrumental in ensuring that this young man got a tourniquet, is that the word for it, on his leg so that he did not bleed out. Because as you can imagine, losing, you don't even have to lose a major limb to bleed out, right? You can just get a cut in the right place in an artery or whatever, and that could cost you your life. And so, this young man, along with it just so happens that Churchill, who owns the funeral home, was driving by at the time of the accident, and he also rendered assistance that was instrumental in saving this young man's life. So he actually put him on the bed of his truck and took him with his leg to the hospital, not knowing, I suppose, if they might be able to attach the leg or not. So a big thank you to all of the persons at the scene of the accident who stepped forward and really assisted in the most amazing way. I think, it's wonderful. And so, yes, this young man is slated to go home today from the hospital. And he has a young son that's a toddler. So I can only imagine how incredibly, stressful this whole situation has been. Let me just see here. Yeah. So the family is very, very grateful for those persons. They are, the police, like I said, still have this as an ongoing investigation. And they've been taking statements from individuals. And yeah. All right, very good. We will keep you guys abreast of that situation. I think we're actually going to have some of the persons involved in that on the show by way of an interview. Sai says, I just renewed my membership for free. She's a Sam's Club member as well. Larry is all about Costco. So the big three, Costco, BJ's, and Sam's Club, they tend to have very similar things. I was a Sam's Club member from when I was in university in the States, in Tampa. And it was just, I think Sam's Club was just the closest one to our university. So that's how we kind of joined. But yeah, it's I love warehouse shopping. Like you go in there and you're like, oh, what a deal. And they have clothing, they have food, they have everything. It's perfect. So Crystal says that she enjoyed the debate last night. She noticed the microphones weren't necessarily muted with the other candidates spoke. Yes, I think they behaved themselves, maybe just even knowing that it was there. It's like, as parents, when your kids know that you're watching or, whatever measures you have in place to monitor them, they're more likely to behave. They're more likely to not go crazy. So maybe it was a deterrent for the candidates, just knowing that it was there. And I'm sure nobody wanted to wake up this morning and be like, oh, we had to use the buzzer, the silencer on Donald Trump 5 times or on Joe Biden 10 times or whatever. So they were also probably thinking about the public response to them potentially being muted. So yeah, Crystal, I'm glad that they were much better behaved. This was the first debate that I actually tuned into, and I did listen to it more or less. So yeah, it was, I thought it was pretty decent. Sue says that these individuals are going to be there for maybe 2 or 3 weeks to the UK, and then they're going to turn around and come back and quarantine for 2 weeks. I think the only thing that is saving people like that, Sue, I'll be honest with you, because the Cayman Islands is relatively low risk with COVID, when they're going into these other countries, they know that coming from Cayman, all of a sudden my eye feels a bit irritated. They don't necessarily have to quarantine. So I think that that's like a saving grace for them, right? Yes, Sue, very amazing. So Marshall has 3 Sam's Club memberships. Why on earth do you need 3? And they have different levels of memberships and stuff as well. All right. So from the debate, NPR, which is one of my favorite news sources, NPR has such good, I don't get to listen to it as much as I want to. They have such good shows. There's a show called The Hidden Brain. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of it before. Audio podcast. Listen to me. Listen to that show. You learn so much. As a matter of fact, let me share the, we're secret nerds in this house, can I tell you? It's so funny because both my husband and I, separate and apart from each other, love this show. And I don't think that we necessarily knew that when we first started dating. But yeah, he'd be sitting here in the office and he'll put it on. I'll be like, oh, turn it up. I want to hear what it's saying. Hidden Brain this is their theme, a conversation about life's unseen patterns. And so they look at a lot of things like with the brain and how people think and how we operate. So this is their description. It says, Hidden Brain helps curious people understand the world and themselves. And boy, am I a curious person, right? Using science and storytelling, Hidden Brain reveals the unconscious patterns that drive human behavior and the biases that shape our choices. Our audience takes uncommon pleasure in the world of ideas. How do children come to love spicy foods? Why do religions exist? What's the best way to get people to be honest on their taxes? Hidden Brain explores the questions like these that lie at the very heart of a complex and changing society. And the guy who narrates it, hosted, he's a social science correspondent by the name of Shankar I would probably butcher his last name, but Vedantam. And he says that the research from psychology and neurology and findings about economics, anthropology, sociology, and other fields are what they put together to kind of make Hidden Brain so interesting. And the goal of Hidden Brain isn't merely to entertain, but to give you insights to apply at work, at home, and throughout your life. And I tell you what, I love this show. I think they do it once a week. Yeah, it's a weekly series on National Public Radio as part of their morning edition. And it was launched as a podcast in 2015, my apologies. And so we listen to it all the time. In fact, I wish I had more time to listen to it sometimes, but I can go and catch up. Like I can go and listen to stuff later on. So yesterday we were listening to a very interesting one about people's perception with, let me tell you what it is. Hold on one second. I want to get the title right. This one is about, was that the empathy one? No, I think we were going back a bit. Hold on. I actually sent, we sent a copy to, it's called Moral Combat, right? So this one, it's so interesting, is about, it says most of us have a clear sense of right and wrong. But what happens when we view politics through a moral lens? So isn't this appropriate with an election and stuff coming up? And this week, this one was just shared 3 days ago, we talked with psychologist Linda Skitka about how moral certainty can produce moral blinders and endanger democracy. So you guys got to listen to these. I mean, these are amazing. Let me put the link in the comment section. Check it out. If you've never heard of Hidden Brain before, you've never listened to Hidden Brain before, please listen to this one. They are just so amazing. I love Hidden Brain. Good morning, Gina. Good morning, Miss Vivian. Oh, okay. So he just renewed his Sam's Club, not 3 of them. No worries. Okay. So speaking of politics, let us jump into what is our headliner for today. Polictricks and pension. So it looks like we've just received an accident alert. Give me one quick second. Oh, a stolen car. Oh boy. So car stolen in Lower Valley last night. We've got some pictures here, so we'll put these up in a second. Yikes. So, yes. All right. So Polictricks. What a thing. What a thing. Yesterday was a very fiery day in the Legislative Assembly here in the Cayman Islands. And what I can say is there are some crazy times ahead between now and the May election. So the premier was accused of already entering the silly season of political campaigning. They call it the silly season for obvious reasons, because people will say the most ridiculous things in the name of politics. So undoubtedly, the premier was getting creative with, I think, some of what he was saying. The opposition obviously took a very staunch view that he was being dramatic and he was reading and looking at something in a different light. And they said the reason for that was straight up politics, because he's playing politics with this issue of pensions. So listen, Bordentown West MLA Chris Saunders brought forward a motion in the Legislative Assembly which basically said that he thought it was a good idea to set up a steering committee to start looking at some of the issues. It's a private member's motion to start looking at some of the issues related to pension, because Mr. Saunders, Chris, actually sits on the Public Accounts Committee. And on the Public Accounts Committee, they get to interview people from different walks of life. And in fact, to my recollection, with the pension companies, I stand to be corrected on this, but I think this is actually correct. This was the first time that they brought in private sector individuals to speak to the Public Accounts Committee, because normally the Public Accounts Committee is reviewing, government departments, their efficiency, their spend, all of these things. So they bring them in to answer questions. But in this particular case, pension was, coming under some scrutiny. Again, because it never seems to disappear with pensions, to be honest. And so they had some questions for the pension administrators. And you guys will remember this because we covered a number of stories. This is what caused Mr. Brett Hill to come before the Public Accounts Committee. They called him in and other pension providers, and he answered questions. And you guys remember, he was the guy who made comments about, basically that pensions are failing and people need to be contributing more. And, he had given feedback because his company, Fidelity Pensions, is the one company even now. I had someone mention me, I think yesterday, the day before, they were told that they'd be getting a payout in August. It is now October, almost November, and that August payout has still not been received. And Fidelity Pension is not the largest. They're nowhere near the largest pension providers in Ireland, but by far, they appear to have received the most complaints. And so the only logical conclusion we can draw from that is they're probably the worst pension provider in Ireland. And they admitted to some failings, but it's far worse than they were admitting to. They're like, oh, yeah, we've got some technological issues. We didn't expect 3,000 people to apply to their pensions, but we're going to get it all sorted out. We've got an IT company. We've got, consultants who are going to come in and clean up our reputation. Well, I hope they fired them because they've not cleaned up anything. This has been a logistical and reputational nightmare for Fidelity Pension. And time again, pensioners are saying, not pensioners, but people who can get access to the pension fund, because technically they're not pensioners yet. But they have said time and time again that, listen, this company, they don't respond to emails, they don't respond to phone calls, they tell you one thing and do something else. So it has not been a good experience for the vast majority of individuals. Anyway, the Public Accounts Committee called them in. And so the motion yesterday that Chris Saunders brought forward was a motion to say, listen, we've just had over $400 million taken out of local pension companies as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, right? He said he supported, he said that apparently the opposition had a different number. I don't know what number they were going to allow people to take out. But nonetheless, when the government put forward their position in relation to the amount and percentage that could be withdrawn, they supported that position. However, he went on to say, listen, we supported it, but we also recognize that there's some serious issues with how pensions are operating here in the Cayman Islands. And Mr. Saunders did a whole speech. Now, listen, I know that the LA can be boring to listen to. Anytime we even live stream it on our platform, most of you don't want to listen. Can be honest here. I see the numbers and I see that you're not interested. And, there's a lot of back and forth and there's people posturing and it's just like, trust me, even myself. Sometimes I listen to these guys and I'm just like, can you grow up already? You're only 50 years old. You're only 60. Some of them are way older than that. And they act like children. They're not the best example in the world on how to debate and how to maintain your cool and all that sort of thing. But, we kind of expect it, I think, even in the legislative assembly. So anyway, yesterday, Mr. Saunders put forward this motion and he said that, let's set up a select committee where we can start Obviously, 5 months, the LA is going to shut down. It's going to be closed off because the elections are right around the corner. People are going to be running for political office, and there's a process where they close out the LA, right? And so, he was saying if we start a select committee, the select committee can start looking at some of the issues and some of the concerns as it relates to pension. Well, Mr. Premier Alden McLaughlin did not take kindly to that private member's motion. He spoke on behalf of the unity government, and boy, he pulled no punches and he did not mince his words. So he had a lot to say. I went back and I listened to some of his speech. And I must say the interesting thing about this is that, like I said, a lot of the components of the LA proceedings are oftentimes very boring, to be quite frank. But in this instance, they were not boring at all. They were very much interesting. And let me just see here. And, the premier said that they were posturing politically, that the opposition needs to be more consistent in their message. These are some of the things that he was saying. And that now is not the time, in his opinion, to start forcing pension companies to make a greater contribution to the pension plan, which that wasn't the point of the motion. So I kind of get where the opposition came back and said, what are you talking about? Why are you politically posturing? That's not what the motion was about. Mr. Chris Saunders spoke on it. Mr. Alva Saku spoke on it, as well as the opposition leader, Mr. Arden McLean. And basically they were all like, did you read the motion? Because we're not saying to increase pension payments now and employers have to contribute more, whatever. What we're saying is this system is broken. That's crystal clear. I think we can all agree with that. And in fact, the premier himself had to agree with that. He's like, yes, the system is broken. And the concept of trying to start working on it now by way of a select committee was not well received by him. Somehow he jumped to the conclusion that that meant that, we would be, during this pandemic, forcing companies or employees to contribute more to their pension plan. And of course, in a time when the economy is not the best, we're in a world economic crisis, what does that mean for people? And that is not what, Mr. Saunders was proposing at all. He did make mention, however, to be fair to the premier, he did make mention in his speech of one of the reasons that this current pension regime that we have in place is failing. And he said, for example, it takes you 5 years at the current pension contribution model, where you're putting in 5% and they're matching at 5%, which is 10%. It takes the average person who's not going to be contributing anything extra, non-mandatory contributions. It takes the average person 5 years to save 1 year's worth of salary. And so what that means is, quite interestingly enough, it's going to take you 50 years to save up 5 years worth of salary. You don't have 50 years to do that normally in your working life. So what is the future for you in terms of your own retirement fund? How are people going to retire? And as we get more and more people living longer and having the opportunity to retire and have a longer retirement, this really spells trouble for the world, right? Of pensions, I should say. And so I see the point that Mr. Saunders was making. I certainly do understand what the issues are, according to him. Let me just see. And words were kind of thrown back and forth. The premier says, oh, they don't understand basic economics, that they're flipping back and forth. They can't be consistent in their message. And then, of course, Mr. Saunders was saying, listen, obviously you're talking about, the campaign season has started and we're campaigning and we're politicking and whatever, when the truth of the matter is you're actually the one who's doing that with this issue, because this is nowhere near what we were saying, what this motion said. Please read the motion with a view of trying to understand what is being said. So I'm going to put the link here because it was a very lengthy back and forth. Good morning to Odette and Paul and Joy. Thank you so much for joining us. So I encourage you, listen, you don't even have to read anymore, folks. With the new feature that we've added to the website, go listen to the article. And yes, I mean, we've actually put a copy of the private members motion, which was seconded by the opposition leader, Mr. Arden McLean, so that you could see it for yourself, see what was there. People need to be more involved. I know, like I said, the LA proceedings can oftentimes get boring. Yesterday, this was kind of like hot and interesting. So I did watch it, but I do get a lot of people are just like, and it's time consuming. Even for me to go back, because sometimes I don't get to watch it in real time, to go back and listen to an LA proceeding just to pick out this 5-minute audio story, you would be surprised how many times I have to listen to it, rewind, make sure I'm getting quotes just right, because I certainly don't want to be misquoting anyone, right? And they say a lot in their contributions. So Mr. Saunders made some very salient points, but the premier did end up saying that timing is everything, and he does not believe that this is the time to address these issues during a global crisis. And so he eventually said, though, that they have to admit that there is a problem with pensions and, they'll need to fix it. So according to him, the government is setting up what did he say? A new pension board, public pension board or something, that would be looking at the various issues around pension. And I guess maybe the opposition wasn't aware of that, and that's why they brought this motion. So I suppose if the government was sharing more of their plans with the LA and with the government and so on, they might actually have avoided this whole thing to begin with. Now, Arden McLean's position on this, he had some very interesting comments to make directed at the premier himself. And he said that the premier, he reminded the LA of the premier's what he calls tactic of opposing all motions brought by the government when he was in the opposition, because remember, he's not always been the leader, which Mr. Arden McLean says was done for political expediency. Arden also noted that the premier cannot, and this was a quote, and will not be reformed. And nothing is good enough for him. That's what Arden said. And that he said, nothing is good enough for him that anyone else does. He's the only one that has a crown on his head, unless he handpicks them and he can control them. Where I need my ear horn. Shots fired. So he beseeched the premier to be more supportive of younger and less experienced members of the Legislative Assembly, just like they all were at one point. And he accused McLaughlin of wanting to stay in power and not thinking about the people and their future. Mr. McLean got a warning from the Speaker of the House when he said that perhaps the premier was pandering to the business sector to secure funding for his upcoming election. And so that comment received a warning from the Speaker of the House about making accusations. I thought anything goes in the LA pretty much, but apparently there are some very thin rules. There's a border of very, very thin rules, folks. So yes, that was very interesting. And the other person to have gotten a warning was Mr. Alva Saku when he spoke as well. He got warned about, I can't remember what Alva said that got him a warning. Oh, yes. he made mention of the fact that he was tempted to not even call the premier because he was essentially losing respect for him in that post. That maybe we needed to recognize that he is campaigning already. So he's the representative, the candidate for Red Bay. So I thought that was super interesting. So yeah, yesterday was not the normal day in the LA. It was, it had a bit of fireworks involved. Let's just put it that way. So you can go back and listen to the LA proceedings. They are available on YouTube, folks. Radio Cayman, I know, does carry them live if you like to listen to radio content. I prefer to watch, even sometimes if I'm just listening in the background. I prefer to use their the CIG YouTube channel to gain access to it. We didn't, sometimes I like to pull out clips, but that's so time consuming. Download it, clip it, put it in the story. But more and more, we will be covering, a lot of these. We will be covering a lot of these. Don't you hate when you close out something in Word and then it doesn't? Why didn't this auto recover? Anyway, yeah, so we will definitely be keeping an eye on all of that for you with a view to keeping you updated. So we'll see what happens with pensions. Good morning, Alice. Thank you so much. Crystal is sharing with us a Compass article. Come on, girl. Why are you sharing a Compass article on CMR? Like, seriously. Seriously, Crystal. Tropical depression likely to form. Well, we are constantly watching the tropics, folks. So Catherine says she want to retire, just no way to afford it at this rate, may end up working until death with these Cayman prices. It's a real thing. And unfortunately, not everyone will have the good health to work until they're 65. And we get that, obviously, the age to work has been increased, but not everybody's going to want to work until that age. And honestly, not everyone will have the option of working until that age either. So, interesting times ahead, for sure. Hello, Kizzy. How are you? Thank you so much for tuning in. So, folks, I do have some, let me just see here. I do have some appointments that I must get to today. So you'll have to forgive me when I say, I'm just trying to check something. Oh, good. This document is fully recovered. I had to emergency close Word and thought I had lost a very important document. Ugh, that would have been disastrous because it's a 12-page document and God knows I couldn't retype all that today. So I do have a few appointments this morning. So I will be ending the show just a little bit early because I got to be in time for where I need to go. So I've got to do some stuff, and then I've got physio a little bit later on this morning. So Kizzy, you joined us late. We talked about that earlier. There was a van that ran into a light pole close to Belford Estates, taking out power in the surrounding area. And the person left the scene of the accident. So whoever you are, dear sir, you might want to find yourself probably voluntarily contacting the authorities with a view to sorting that out. Why do people run from the scene of the accident? I mean, the assumption is always that you run because you have something to hide, right? Otherwise, why would you run? Some people run because they know they're at fault. Very interesting indeed. Give me one quick second here. So, Irvelyn, thank you so much, my friend. I'm just trying to see. Okay, so listen, I'm gonna have a very busy day today, actually. I got a lot of running up and down to do. And do not forget, there is the Silent Witness March at 3:30. So I intend to go. I know the weather is not looking too good for that march, but you know what? I'm going to actually take a change of clothes with me today and a little bit of rain to support a cause like domestic violence is not going to kill anyone. So, let us stay focused on these issues that matter to us. It is unfortunate that here in the Cayman Islands, we have very little representation in the Legislative Assembly around issues that women and men and families should care about, social issues such as domestic violence and abuse, child abuse. All of these things need to be on the forefront of issues that our legislators care about. Yes, economics is important. Obviously, we all have to pay our bills and we all have to live. But if we continue to focus on the economy and the financial success of these islands and lose our way when it comes to protecting the most vulnerable people in our community, what does it matter how much money you have? If your children can't be safe from predators in their own homes, in the schools, in the community at large, what difference does it make how much money we have? Honestly, I'm just asking, right? To me, it doesn't matter. These are the things that we need to be having a look at. The weather is, I can hear the weather kicking up, and I can also hear Coco getting very uncomfortable with it. So just give me one quick second.
Magandang araw po mga kababayan, Joy Anglin po. Nabili na po ba ninyo ang dish pack ng Miracle Brokers? Up to 200 pounds kaya pong ilagay dito. Halina po kayo, Christmas na sa Pilipinas, tamang-tama po para sa mga ate at kuya. Halina po kayo dito sa Miracle Brokers. Miski pwede pong ilagay dito sa box, pera lang po ang jowa nyo.
Contact us at 949-5989 or email us at info@miraclebrokers.
All right, folks, big shout out to Miracle Brokers. So that commercial there is, if you're from the Philippines, you'll know by now that Miracle Brokers have these boxes that you can pack, and whatever can fit in the box, you can ship to the Philippines, get your shipments in. I think deadlines may have already passed, but they do them every so often. And they fill up a container. So if you wanted stuff to get there by Christmas or shortly after Christmas, by all means, contact Miracle Brokers and they will get you sorted out with your boxes so that your loved ones can still, although they might not have your presents, they can still enjoy Christmas with some goodies and so on. So, so I was just saying that I have a lot of things on tap for today. Please go out and support the Silent Witness March if you can at 3:30. It starts at the government admin building, and then they pass the police station and they end up going towards the courts and the Legislative Assembly area. The Legislative Assembly is still in session, but I would hope that, at the end of the day, the people in the LA will take a break at 3:30 and come and join the march. I think every single representative, the Speaker of the House, should take their lunch break late, because boy, do they enjoy taking a lunch break. Take your break at 3:30, make it a coffee break, mid-afternoon break, whatever you want to call it. And, all 19 of you, come on out, or whoever, because some of them were absent yesterday. I think about 4 persons were absent. Come on out, do the march, show your support. We know that a lot of you are hard pressed to show your support because you yourselves are alleged wife beaters and the like. We've got a couple child molesters in the Legislative Assembly as well. And here in the hard, cold truth, we don't sugarcoat this. We don't pretend like these men are all that virtuous. We know who they are and what they are. And that's why when they start pulling out the Bible and quoting the Bible, we're just like, what? Who are you trying to fool? Because you're certainly not fooling us. And if you're not fooling us, we're going to make sure that you're not fooling the general public either, because we're going to tell you the cold, hard truth. Trenwick says, talking point. I had overheard an expat complaining about how overpriced the real estate is in Cayman. Her main problem was overpricing of small condos and apartments here in Ireland. Woo, Trenwick, that could be days worth of discourse. Let's pick that up maybe one day next week. I don't know how you price control these things, though, because it's like, what will the market bear? We see some slight fluctuations, but by and large, it appears that the market will bear these ridiculous prices. And every turnaround on South Sound and other places on this island, there's another humongous condo complex going up that people are purchasing and renting in the whole 9 yards. So there seems to be a market for it. Catherine says, why are they holding March while people are still working? Could have been closer to 4 o'clock maybe. I don't know why they pick the times that they do. But there could be some logical reason. Sue, my apologies, is suggesting that the speaker should join the march. Hold on. Let me see.
Oh, this is bad.
Sue, naughty. Andy, good morning to you. Crystal says, Sandra, you should be in Parliament. You're very educated. Well, Crystal, education is but one attribute that you need to be a politician. I think there's a whole list of what else you need. You know what, Crystal? We need to have a conversation about that. We're not going to do it today because this might take some time. But there is a very good question about what is it that people want to see in politicians. So being educated, that's fine. I think you should have at least some of your politicians that are educated. Not all of them have the same type of education. So some have, like, they're from the school of hard knocks, like they've just lived long enough where they know enough and they've had a lot of experiences. Some people are more book smart. Some people are more practical smart. I like to think myself personally that I'm kind of in between book smart and a little bit of street smart, you know? Like, I'm not street smart in the sense that like I deal with like con artists and that sort of thing, because you know I don't entertain certain people. You're a narcissist, you're a con artist, scoot to the side. You and I cannot be friends, we can't be acquaintances. But I like to think that I have had enough experience in my 40-something years where I can spot BS a mile away. And I really have a good radar for it, I must say, that I feel like almost it's like a gift, you know, to be able to, there's a saying, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice. I'm the type of person you're not likely to fool twice. You'll fool me once, but twice? No. So I kind of feel like I have a balance of both. If I was doing a self-assessment, which, you know, as they say, self-praise is no recommendation. But yeah, if I was doing a little bit, you know, I'm like, I'm a little bit. But the truth of the matter is I am actually a real nerd. Like, I read and dig into information. I'm an information junkie. And I've always been that way, Crystal. I love information because I think knowledge is power. And the more you know, the better off you are. And so maybe that's one of the reasons why I love the CMR format, because I get to educate other people and give you nuggets of information. And I think that I can break it down where most people can understand. You know, sometimes we write a story, and I know some of the intellectuals on this island, the college degree holders, like, oh, CMR can't write, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, ugh. I have a writing degree. I assure you I can write. I have 4 degrees under my belt, including a law degree, and this isn't that kind of platform. I'm not writing academic paper, right? I don't need to use big fancy words, and depending on the topic, it is often not appropriate to do so. So I always feel like the mark of an educated person really is to know when to use your academic hat when you put that on and you're in that mode and you're talking to certain people. you talk to them in a different way and at a different level. And when you're talking to the average person, I don't need to be throwing out all these big words at you. Like, honestly, are you even going to care? You know, it's really about breaking it down. And I cannot begin to tell you, I don't know, Crystal, if you were privy to this conversation we had a few weeks ago about what is happening to lawyers here in the Cayman Islands, Caymanian lawyers who've really come under the gun with this new regulatory regime that the government has allowed to be created. But if you missed that conversation, trust me, you missed a really good show. I'll see if I can quickly find the link. And that show was all about, it was a little bit technical, like looking at different aspects of the law. But I received immediately after that show a number of persons who reached out to me, and they were like, listen, you explain that. You took what is normally a very complex issue, right? The lawsuits and how this is going to work and the whole 9 yards. And you explain that in such a way that honestly, anybody could understand it. And it just made total sense. I got lawyers calling me saying that, all sorts of people. And I thought it was interesting because I hadn't really thought about it in that way. And then I said to them, really? And they're like, yeah, not many people could have done that job of really breaking it down where everybody walked away going, okay, I understand this. Whether you were high school educated, no high school education, whatever. So I think, Crystal, that a lot of times politicians and people in leadership positions really miss the mark when it comes to how do you convey a message to the average person and how do you have this discourse, this dialogue to engage people in the conversation. I don't have to sit here and prove my intelligence to anybody. You know, if you know me, then you know what credentials I bring to the table. But I do think, Crystal, that there is a certain degree of intellectual capacity. It doesn't have to be a formal education, but a certain degree of intellectual capacity that is required to manage things, running of companies, running of countries, that sort of thing. So I could see why you would think that an education is really important for someone who wants to be in politics. I have no interest in being in politics. I keep saying, a lot of people on this show have said, yeah, man, you need to run for politics. I've actually been there and done that many, many years ago, over 10 years ago. I don't foresee myself doing it again. And there's a number of reasons why. And one of the primary reasons why is, I gotta be honest with you, my family, my husband and my child and my little dog, Coco, are my number one priority above anything else. And so I have to focus on my child to make sure that I can build the type of life for her where she will have opportunities, perhaps that I didn't even have. And she will be able to, anything that she wants to reach for, the sky is the limit. Like, I have to create those opportunities for her. And I also have to create an emotionally stable environment where I'm like there for her. You know, some days the child just needs a hug. Some days she's like, Mommy, I want you to hold me. And I have to be there. And I have a sense that with politicians, a lot of times you're out there trying to save the world and you end up losing your own family in the process. And that's not a sacrifice that I can personally make. Having said that, you know, obviously I'm a business owner. I run multiple businesses. And so my time is also very, very precious to me. And I love doing this podcast show. I love what I do with CMR, and I do dedicate a lot of my time to the CMR platform. And that, I feel, already takes away, you know, from my family, because I've always got people messaging me and, oh, can you help me with this? And can you help me with that? Sometimes I get phone calls at all hours of the night. You'd really be surprised. And so in terms of me helping people in the community, I kind of feel like I do that already. Like, I'm already making a difference through the CMR platform. And I gotta be honest with you, we put up a story on CMR, it gets actioned. It gets people talking, it gets responses, government is gonna make a statement, people are gonna fix things almost immediately. What politician, Crystal, think about this, what politician can say to you that in the realms of the Legislative Assembly, they get that type of immediate response. They don't. What they get is, okay, put forward a motion. 5 months later, maybe it'll go somewhere. A year later, maybe, maybe not. 4 years in public office, and what have you accomplished? Well, I brought 5 motions. Okay. And what happened as a result of those motions? Nothing, because we were not in the government. The government wouldn't do it. Even sometimes being in the government, you don't get to affect real change. So I think the bottom line is that we all have a role to play in this world. It's not always in the same way, but we can affect change in so many different ways. And honestly, I love what I do. I love CMR. I love having discourse with you guys, getting up every morning. I know some of you, like literally, if I'm 2 minutes late, I've got people messaging me, Sandy, where are you? My phone is pinging. I'm like, okay, I'm getting on right now. So someone is wondering about Treasury, the Treasury Department, what's going on. Government workers are saying that they've noticed an error in their salary as well. That's not good. Hopefully that can be rectified soon, because, you know, people don't like to have others mess with their money. Help me find someone here this morning, folks. We're looking for Daniela If anyone knows her, she has left her driver's license behind somewhere. Daniela Neary Ebanks, and she lives in East End. If you know Daniela Ebanks from East End, please let us know so that we can reunite her with her driver's license. So I have a pretty good source these days that can normally give me contact details for people. So a lot of times we're not really posting driver's licenses anymore unless they can't find a contact number for them. So we do other things before we actually post it on the website, right? So Daniela Neary Ebanks, if you're listening to the show, or if any of you know her from East End, please let her know that she has misplaced her driver's license and it has been found. She has an address in East End. So let us know, and we will certainly reunite her with that license. So one of the things that I do, folks, you guys know that I'm actually in front of my computer here, and I got my keyboard and everything's right here on my desk. And so, yeah, sometimes I'm messaging and got things going on right here. So we are, as usual, working on a couple stories for you guys, which will definitely go up today. 5-tier lockdown for Scotland. Yikes. That just came in on the email from one of our viewers. I'm just checking what else. Is going on. Okay. So we will continue to ask questions. I know that I was telling you yesterday that we had submitted some questions about that we had submitted some questions about the quarantining situation. And so we're continuing to follow up on that so that we can hopefully get some exact numbers to share with you guys. So just a reminder, folks, if you live in Cayman Brac, there will be an interruption tomorrow of electricity at the Faith Hospital to facilitate urgent repairs to the emergency generator system. So make a note of that, please, on your calendars. Good morning again, Sue. So Sue says, yes, so right. All right, folks, I think that's it for me. Big shout out to, okay, so we've got a number for Daniela. So we'll message Daniela and see if we can reunite her with her driver's license. So big shout out to Miss Jacqueline Charles from the Miami Herald. She is the Caribbean writer. She covers all things concerned with the English-speaking Caribbean. So some of the stories that she has up on the Miami Herald today, cholera arrived in Haiti 10 years ago, and victims are still waiting for compensation. Wow. So apparently they've been dying. This is a very interesting story. I'm going to read this. But it basically says farmers in Haiti's Artibonite Valley were dying after drinking unchlorinated water from that river. And they're becoming dehydrated and suffering from severe diarrhea, cholera. And they've been dying. And the story goes on about how a compensation process has not, not been fair to them. So they're still waiting for compensation. That's crazy, 10 years on. But Jacqueline always sends us some of her articles. Of course, she has been covering the situation with the Venezuelan tanker that has 1.3 million gallons of crude oil. Now, her article says that it has 55 million gallons of crude oil abandoned off the country's northern coast. We had heard 1.3 million, so perhaps it's now been updated. But this is posing an environmental threat to the area and, in fact, perhaps the entire Caribbean Sea. So she's done a number of articles on those. So I'm going to read those to kind of keep up with what she is doing as well. So yes, good people, enjoy your weekend. I'm out. That's it for me. I appreciate the love and support. Weather permitting, so if it's a little bit of drizzle, we're not going to let that stop us. We will be out there for the Silent Witness March at 3:30. We'll be covering that. So we have a couple live events that will definitely happen today. One will be the, one is a surprise at about 2:30ish or so. And then at 3:30, we'll do the Silent Witness March. And so tune in for that, and we'll keep you guys abreast of anything else that's happening and that's breaking. Listen, folks, the roads are going to be wet today. It's Friday. Just take your time. Slow down. There's nowhere that you're going in a hurry that is going to really getting there 5 minutes earlier, if you make it, because obviously if you get in an accident, you're not going to get there 5 minutes early. It's not going to make a difference. So slow down and, take it easy. Relax. It's Friday. Enjoy yourselves. No drinking and driving, folks. Let's be sensible and have a safe and wonderful weekend.
Thank you for tuning in to another edition of The Cold Hard Truth. Make sure to check Facebook for showtimes and more information and the latest news at CaymanMarlRoad.com. Subscribe to our IG and Facebook pages to get the latest happenings.